Hello, and welcome to Crucible Radio with me, Swain. I'm all alone this week, but I do have an awesome interview with Sport Psychologist Steve coming up in just a few moments. I did, however, want to put a bit of a disclaimer here at the top. This episode is for everyone and every game. This is because we take a deeper look inward at how to improve ourselves. Taking this step is how you break that plateau of improvement. It's how you become a better teammate. It's how you become a better and more understanding friend or family member. And it's also how you can possibly be better at your job. This sort of improvement has been a big part of my life over the past year, and it's a constant work in progress. I have 30 years of bad habits to break, and it's slow going. But every single day, I try and make a little tiny step in the right direction. So as of last winter, I started to read a lot more than I used to. I started meditating. I also try and schedule my time when I play video games so that I don't overdo it. Shorter sessions are much better than long ones. You'll find out more later. All in an effort to improve, which has always been the idea behind this podcast. Improvement. Now, I can hear some of your eyes rolling because I mentioned meditation, which unfortunately suffers from some terrible branding. But I prefer to see it as mindfulness and self-awareness training. The idea behind it is to simply put some space between your mind and each individual thought. You can see the benefit of that, right? And I personally like to use an app on my phone called Headspace, but there's plenty of resources out there. You can check YouTube. But doing this a couple times each week or even once a day eventually creates some mindfulness, and you can better react to the situations because you're now watching each individual thought and decision go by in front of you before reacting on it. This especially helps for those of you who are easy to tilt. If you could put some space in between you and that thought of being angry and just overreacting and putting yourself in a bad headspace, it's really nice to be able to recognize it coming on and just let it go by. While meditation isn't the focus of this particular episode's interview, it is another tool to add to the tool belt, as we all strive to improve in-game and outside of the game. And if I can help even just one person find that next level, it'll be more than worth it. So if you are intrigued, join me for my interview with good friend of the podcast, Sport Psychologist Steve. Okay, let's get to the meat of this episode, and I'm going to bring my guest in, Sports Psychologist Steve. Welcome.
What's up, Swain? How's it been? How's it going? Good to see you. Good to hear you.
It's been great. It's been nice being able to do a lot of the stuff that we're going to talk about tonight, and it's been a part of my life outside of just gaming, and I've been itching to talk to you about these sort of things. So let's jump into it.
Let's do it.
So first, for the people that haven't listened to other episodes with you on the show, let's talk about what makes you special.
Wow.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
That's a loaded question, Swain. It depends, I guess, who you ask. If you talk to my parents, they might give you a different story. But as far as my background goes, so again, I'm kind of known as Sport Psych Steve now, and I thank you guys for actually giving me that name.
The branding.
Yeah, that branding worked out pretty well. I've done a few podcasts on Crucible Radio now. This is, I don't know, we lost count a while ago. Fallout probably still has me beat now for the record. I think he's just going to take that forever.
This might be closing the gap.
All right. Yeah, I'm okay with closing the gap a little bit. So my background is in sports psychology. I got my master's degree from Miami University in Ohio in sports psychology. Prior to that, I went to University of New Hampshire, got my undergraduate degree in psychology, and I've been practicing now for close to 10 years, actually, in various different avenues. So my current job is working with the United States Army. I've been there for about 5 years now, and most of what I do is delivering mental skills training to the soldiers, some to the family population as well. But what I train is performance enhancement skills. So everything from sports psychology, everything that I would train an athlete in is very applicable to the military population. So,
okay. I listened to a podcast called the Jocko Podcast. You ever hear it?
I don't think so.
He's a retired Navy SEAL, and he's like the typical Navy SEAL guy, like real hard, like just get after it, man. Like,
very type A.
He's very like inspiring. I love listening to him, but it's nice. It's funny to hear him talking about the military and like starting to incorporate like mindfulness and sports psychology into their training. Yeah, it's definitely something new that I don't think I've seen a lot of talk about.
Yeah, it's not as nice. Discussed as much for sure. The special forces community has been doing it for a little bit longer than the conventional soldiers have. But now, it's pretty popular. It's pretty widespread.
If you think about it, they've been like, if you go all the way back to like warrior monks, like that was something way before, and it kind of has circled back around.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like the meditative state and different martial arts styles have a lot of mindfulness training and being present, being in the moment. What I'm talking about is more of like the very deliberate, can you utilize cues to shift your attention amidst distractions, sure, in environments that you're unfamiliar with, things along those lines.
So would that be what you would describe like sports psychology as, like, if you had to like describe it really simply for someone who was just like trying to find those different moments? Yeah, I mean,
I think the big way that you can think of sports psychology adding to your training is you probably already do some sort of like technical or tactical training. And depending on what the task is, you might do some physical training. But there's probably a mental or emotional component to the task or performance that you're doing. And sports psychology is a deliberate way to train so that you get better in that component of the performance or task.
Nice. So it's focusing, like working out both your mind and your body.
Yeah, focus is certainly one thing, motivation, confidence, all different concepts that there are skills that can be deliberately trained. So you don't have to just like hope that you get better in any of those areas.
So you say you've worked with athletes as well?
Yeah. So prior to joining the military as a sports psychology consultant, I was working with a minor league baseball team back in my home of Long Island. But before that, I spent a summer at a youth tennis academy. I worked with Division I athletes at Miami with teams and individuals there. So I've hit pretty much almost every level of athlete, whether it's at the youth or amateur level, all the way up to the professional athletes.
I feel like I've seen a lot of tennis players be some of the most intense people I've ever met.
Oh,
is that true?
Oh, absolutely. Because you think about the grind that it takes to play. If you're playing a 3 to 4 hour match in the burning heat and you're by yourself on that court, the endurance.
With a lot of people looking at you.
Oh,
too.
Yeah, absolutely. You got the crowd looking at you, analyzing everything that you do, and the difference between winning and losing in that sport. I mean, you see the top guys have been the top guys for the last 10 years. It's so hard to crack that because they're so good.
It's got a lot of longevity for sure.
Yeah, for sure. It's an incredibly mentally tough sport, but also the physical challenges, are huge there too, especially as you get closer to that top level.
So we kind of explained the very basis of sports psychology, but I'm thinking we got to transition it into, why we're talking here. Video games. Video games have been starting to incorporate sports psychology and mindfulness and all that because it's becoming an actual sport. You're seeing like Overwatch League and Dota and CSGO, like those types of things are becoming very big, and they're drawing a lot of attention from like people with money. So you're seeing these other, like these mindfulness and all that finding its way in as well with professional sports have been around for a while. So as far as video games go, though, what do you think is the beginning for someone that's just starting out. Like, say you are a really good Crucible player, or you're just like diamond in Overwatch and you're feeling like you're hitting that plateau and you've been raging and, you can't find your flow. What do you think the start is for someone in that situation? Because this is going to bring you to a whole nother level. Like, if you can start to incorporate some of these things.
Yeah, I think, we could spend time talking about the competitive level where esports is at with Counter-Strike or Overwatch or League of Legends. But, sports psychology and mental skills training will apply to, the everyday gamer in the same way. If you're, a pickup basketball player and you're playing on the weekends at intramurals at the local gym, or, you're a high school player and you're looking to get a little bit better, the application of mental skills training to getting better at video games, if it's something that you're interested in, deliberately training, certainly applies as well. So your question was, how do you get started with this whole process, right?
Yeah, like what would you say is the very beginning for someone like just a dad on the weekends that plays some sort of competitive mode in a video game that just wants to get better, like has that little goal, I'm trying to reach the next rank in this game. I'm trying to, come away with a KD like this. What is like some basic like first steps? Yeah.
So when I'm working with a client for the first time, regardless of the environment that they're in, I typically try to build some self-awareness in the individual before I start to train any type of like self-regulation strategies. So the first thing that I would encourage people to do is to develop self-awareness, and that can be done in many different ways. I can make some suggestions for that person that you're talking about right now to be able to do that.
So does it vary from person to person? You like analyze a person and say like, hey, this might help you a little bit better. You're this type of personality. There's different ways of getting started.
Initially, no, to be really frank, like I kind of have a pretty straightforward process of the types of questions that I ask to get to know the person initially. And they're pretty simple things, like just tell me a little bit about, what you currently do with, so for example, let's take Destiny. Like, how do you play?
Yeah, well,
how
let's do it with
Destiny?
Me.
Okay.
So
yeah.
like if you're going to do this with me.
Yeah. So what's your background with Destiny? Tell me a little bit about how you currently play it and where you want to go with, with Destiny.
So I would say I am a casual player that likes to win, and I have a competitive drive to win. But I still want to have fun doing it. I don't want to take it too seriously, because if I take it too seriously, I lose sleep and all those types of things. But I would love to like just reach a level where I feel confident enough to do whatever I try, like set out to do in the game, and be successful with it.
Okay. So like I could take that in a couple of different directions. I could focus on how you said, I want to win. And I would ask you, like, what does winning mean for you? And how would you define success in winning? Because you're obviously not going to win every single game that you play in Destiny, right? So for you, like, what does winning mean? What would a realistic goal that you would try to achieve that we can measure, and we can say, where are you at right now versus where do you want to be when it comes to winning?
Gotcha. So I like being able to be more of a team player and like come away from a match like saying that we did our best together as a group, because that always feels good. Like I don't mind, like I can lose a game and still have fun as long as like we all work together and it was like it felt magical. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where you're just kind of like the flow state, like where you get in that flow with your team and you did your best. You had that 3v1 at the end of like a match and you almost got it and it was so close and you feel like you actually tried your best.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. I'm very much the same type of player where like I enjoy the team environment way more. Like in Destiny 1, I didn't do a lot of rumble and like solo queuing. It was mostly playing with my friends, and that's how I am with a lot of other games too. So, with that said, Swain, tell me, since we're talking about sports psychology, mental skills training, what would you consider your psychological strength is? What would you say your best attribute is when it comes to the mental game?
So when it comes to the mental game, I feel like I do well analyzing certain situations, like anticipating the other team. Like I can very much anticipate movement and strategies from the other team. For me, it's reacting to them. And I feel like I would be a good shot caller for a team. I just don't have those skills yet. And I would love to build those skills, not just in Destiny too. Like in Overwatch, like I solo queue a lot in that. And I would love to be able to like come into a public match with like a bunch of randoms and be able to like shot call and be like, because I play a lot of Farah in that. And Farah's like a way up in the air, so she can see everything. And I'm really good at anticipating like with rockets and all that. So that would be my strength, is anticipation of what the other players are doing on the enemy team.
Gotcha. And so it's interesting because even within a video game like Overwatch, you have technical skill, right? So like thumb skill, ability to aim, ability to switch weapons, rapidly and be able to move. And then you've got like tactical skill, right? Which a lot of that, it sounds like what you're talking about, which is, can you anticipate enemy movement? Can you see the map from like 3 steps back or, at the 3,000 foot view, and strategize with your teammate? Can you get a good flank? Those sorts of things. From the mental side, though, how would you say you do with like tilt, getting angry, staying motivated when you're losing a match, but you feel like there's a chance to come back, confidence going up against really tough competitors that are ranked higher than you in another division, managing like the fight or flight response, doing like relaxation strategies and deep breathing. Like, are there any of those types of skills that you would think like that you do really well currently?
So I do really well preventing my own tilt. Like I very rarely get off kilter, and I love that I can do that. I can stay calm and just like not have someone affect me. But I do get affected by like letting my team down. Like that'll really like sink home to me. And I think that's where a lot of like I continue to. That's like my type of tilt. Like I tilt in like I'm upset that like I couldn't help my team in this situation. I died. I moved in too quick, and I didn't do the right strategy. So that's where my weakness is. But I would say my strengths are avoiding the other types of tilt that like get me angry and really throw my controller types of tilt.
And how do you go about doing that? How do you overcome that? Because it is something that probably a lot of people listening to this right now would say like tilt is one of those things that I really want to target. I want to get better at. So for you, Swain, since you feel like it is a strength of yours, how do you overcome that?
So lately I've been able to overcome it through implementing some of the things I learned through meditation. And I feel like that's been really good for me, is being able to, because like the biggest thing in meditation is be able to see, like have your thoughts pass in front of you and let them go by.
Yes.
And just kind of like that same thing works for emotions too. Like you need to be able to recognize your emotion happening and just let it pass by, and you just move on to the next thing. So for me, it's always been, it's been there, but lately it's been even better that I've been able to be like, okay, like I let myself down and I was upset, or like I could feel that anger coming on because someone's got my number. Like it's just like you turn a corner, you get shot, like, but I'm able to just like kind of be like, okay, well, what's the reset here? Like I could see it happening, and I could be like, okay, reset button, slow down. What am I doing wrong?
Yeah. And
being able to recognizing in that moment, be like, okay, this is what I need to do.
Yeah. So you're doing some of that stuff, I think, deliberately. Like some of it is attributions of success and failure in there. So your perception of what's going on. I'm hearing that you're using some specific relaxation strategies like meditation and just sort of like mindfulness, being aware, but letting things pass through you. So a lot of really great skills that probably have taken you some time to develop. And that's why you've seen the success of it to limit the tilt when it comes in. So let's switch gears then. Tell me a little bit about where you feel like your biggest area of improvement is with the mental game or your your weakness, or like I said, there's an area that you'd like to improve on when it comes to the mental game.
So I would like to be able to tap into that flow a little bit easier.
Okay.
When it comes to like having those little things that I would do, whether it's thumb skill, whether it's like the combinations of things, specifically for Destiny, for me, it's like being able to close gaps while shooting and meleeing. I feel like I get flustered in the moment.
Yeah.
Where I can't really I'm thinking too much about the strategy or the the 3 steps back view.
Yes.
And I am not being able to execute the some of the finer detailed stuff that I would like. I talk about it all the time on, Crucible Radio. Like I know the strategies and I know how to implement these things. I just I can't in the moment something happens where I'm just not executing it. I'm not thinking about it as much.
Yeah.
So that would be my weakness as far as the mental part of it.
Yeah.
I get too much caught up.
And so flow, kind of being in the zone, letting it happen, automaticity, those are definitely things to strive towards, but they're often very difficult states to be in, especially for extended periods of time. So
do you want to describe flow real quick?
Yeah,
for someone
sure.
who may not be familiar with it.
So flow, it's sort of a difficult thing to describe, because it's this feeling of everything's kind of happening on its own. You're kind of letting it go. There's not a lot of conscious thinking. You're doing a lot of responding to what's in front of you.
And this isn't just video games. It's literally everything you do in your life.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially jobs and stuff. You get into flow states. I used to be a bike messenger for a long time. And when I had good days, I knew I was on point that day.
Yeah.
Multitasking in my mind where I was going, picking up packages and all the thing, radio chatter and talking to the receptionist. It was all just it all flowed one thing into other, and it always felt real good. Yeah,
and you have to be a little bit careful when you're describing flow, because you don't want to go into daydreaming, right? Because when you're in flow, you are performing at a very high level, whereas daydreaming, you might just be kind of drifting off and not really focused. Yeah, so
in your head.
Exactly. So flow is very much you're aware of everything going on, and things start to kind of slow down for you, and they're very easy. But like I said, even the top people in whether it's Overwatch, whether it's any esport, whether it's any regular traditional sport, flow states tend to be very rare.
Fleeting?
Yes, exactly. Fleeting, because as soon as you become aware that you're in that flow state, typically that brings you out of the flow state. So a lot of what sports psychologists and people like myself would work with athletes on, or esport athletes or any performers on, is getting you as close as you can towards that flow state. But it's really hard to put yourself into it, because you can't consciously just get there, it's sort of just over time. Yeah,
into my flow.
Yeah, boy, if you could figure out exactly how to do that, you could definitely make some money. So
yeah, right.
So but I like that you're trying to get closer to less conscious awareness at this point, and sort of letting things happen a little bit more. So that's kind of where you want to improve when it comes to the mental game. So the next question that I have for you is, describe to me, if you can remember, a very specific performance of yours that you would categorize as my greatest performance. Something that stood out to you where everything was working well for you.
I mean, I've had, I particularly remember one Overwatch game where I was just I had something 60 kills as Farah. But it was it was ridiculous. And it was one of the few times that I felt everything was going right.
Yeah.
We were executing everything perfectly, and I wasn't dying as much. And it ended up it was a long checkpoint, but I was staying alive and keeping it alive for my team. And
so if you could you could you tell me what you attribute that success to? Like one or two or maybe three factors that you think led to you being so successful, maybe in that particular game?
Definitely the anticipation of the other team and being able to like find angles that I can stay out of their line of sight and being able to like get into weird spaces.
Okay.
That's something I tend to try and do is like, where are they least expecting? Because like people tend to have habits where they go like, this is the first place I check, second place I check, third place I check. And if I can be in a weird area that's still to my benefit, like I definitely did it in that game.
Gotcha. Okay.
I would say I was doing really well with call outs in that one too, like being the shot caller. And what would the third one be?
What was your, from like a mental state, like what was it like before the game started, if you can remember, or during the game? Where was your energy level? You know,
we were a full team, all of my friends, and I was in a very comfortable, like jolly mood essentially.
Okay.
So like
good,
very loose and being able to like joke with everyone. And once we got in the game, there was still some joking, but it was like more so like everyone was building each other up and being like, oh, this is going so well. Like we're doing great. Like we would get like killed and everything or put off the point, but it would be like, no, we got this. We got that. Like kind of a very positive environment.
Excellent. Yeah. That's the type of awareness that I'd be looking for. So, feeling very loose, calm, relaxed, but like happy, jolly. Those are good descriptors for me to get an idea of where you need to be to perform at your best. So you're not a competitive player. You're not on a competitive scene. You haven't been in these big esports competitions. You play a lot of all these different games though. So this may be a bit difficult for you to answer, but can you think of a specific performance that you had that you would say like that was the worst I've ever played? This one stood out to me where nothing was going well.
Okay. I would say one night, me, Lupo, and Lazy Summerstone, he does the Watermelon Exo comics.
Yep.
I asked Lupo to help him go to the lighthouse at the end of V1.
Okay.
And I was like, I can jump in and help you. Like, I want to do it with you. Like, it should be pretty easy. But we didn't get him there. We didn't succeed in getting him there. And I would say that was probably one of my worst performances because it was just like, I felt like I needed to make it happen.
Yeah. Okay. And
with like Lupo, he's, amazing at what he does. So it was like even more pressure because I didn't want to waste his time.
That's excellent. So that's those 4 or 5 broad questions is how I would structure a conversation to start to build self-awareness with an individual. And so, those of you that are listening right now, you can take those questions that I asked Swain and you could just jot down some notes on a piece of paper, or just like if you're driving, just like think about for you, what are your strengths with the mental game? What are areas that you can improve on? What's it like when you're playing really well? And what's it like when you're not playing well? Because what that does is gives a very clear picture of where you need to go, because you always want to leverage your strengths as much as possible. So if there's things that you're already doing well, you should be aware of those strengths and you should use those strengths as much as possible and not just focus on here's all the areas that I have for improvement. You should focus on those as well. And that gives us direction of what should we target to improve on. So if like Swain, for you, I would really hone in on what is it like when I feel really good and I'm playing well. That's where we want to go versus this idea of like putting additional pressure on myself and feeling this like need to perform at a high level. That's what we want to try to avoid. And so we would come up with specific strategies to work more towards that jolly, happy, calm, relaxed feeling. And that way you would limit the number of times that you were in that other, mindset or emotional state where you were like when you were playing with Lupo.
Yeah, that definitely, like those questions were great. Like that, unlocked a lot in myself that I knew, but like saying it and kind of getting out there is like, oh yeah, okay. That is a very like clear cut version of what helps me succeed and what I've struggled with in the past. And sometimes I go into situations where I'm like, I know something's going to be tough, and I automatically put myself into that, like, I got to perform. I got to I don't want to let this person down mode. Whereas I should be trying to push myself into that, like, we're going to have a great time. Like, I'm going to enjoy this tonight and this is fun. It's just video games. Like, I should be able to push myself into that more. Yeah.
And I can't tell you how difficult some people find it to acknowledge their strengths or even be aware of their strengths. Like sometimes I'll say, like, just give me a list of the 20 things that you do well. And they will struggle with putting down 5 on a piece of paper or telling me 5. But I'll say that on the flip side, okay, write down 20 things that you need to improve on. That's a lot easier of an answer, right? So, but that's a problem. That's like a huge problem because you want to leverage the things that you're good at, and that's what you want to target. Like, you want to go towards what you're already good at, as opposed to trying to avoid the things that you're bad at. Because if you're so focused on avoiding the mental state that you don't want to be in or the emotional state that you don't want to be in, you're kind of fighting it more than just letting yourself be who you are at your best. And that's how you're going to succeed. So yes, it's absolutely important that you identify areas for improvement and you can target those to some degree with some deliberate training. But really knowing your strengths and using those is so critical to peak performance.
Well, I'll take a minute here, and I want to thank this week's show sponsor, and that's Keeps. Hair loss isn't just your dad's problem. It happens earlier in life than you think. In fact, by 35, 2 out of 3 men will start losing their hair. I know it. So introducing Keeps, a new company offering a simple, clinically proven, affordable way to stop hair loss. Complete with only 2 FDA-approved hair loss products, Keeps is clinically proven to help you keep the hair you have. Plus, it's entirely online and only costs $10 to $35 a month, half of what you typically pay at the pharmacy. Better yet, sign up is easy and takes less than 5 minutes. So just answer a few questions, snap a few photos, and then a licensed doctor remotely reviews your information and gives you the right prescription. So within 2 to 3 days, a 3-month supply of your treatment will arrive at your door. Now, trust me, you want to do this. You don't want to get too far gone, and you won't have any hair like me. So stop hair loss today the easy way with Keeps, offering customized treatment plans with only FDA-approved hair loss products for about $1 a day from the comfort of your couch. So to receive your first month of treatment for free, go to keeps.com/crucible. That's keeps.com, KEEPS.com/crucible. That's a free month of hair treatment at keeps.com/crucible. Keeps, hair today, hair tomorrow. So as far as going into a night of gaming, or you're going into a competition, whether it's like a small little local thing, or, who knows, you could be, trying out for the Overwatch League. They actually just had not an amateur open, but like a lot of like local people, because they're going to bring someone onto the Philadelphia Fusion that's a local person. So like they had a little competition the other day that was just like all local people trying to get on the team.
That's so awesome.
So like, which is cool. I'm getting off tangent. I'm so obsessed.
Yeah,
with
how much
Overwatch.
money is going in the Overwatch jar on this episode? My goodness.
We are free from Overwatch jars and Fortnite jars and all that in this one. But I want to know how you can continue to address it each play session. So like you're going to sit down, you're going to get ready, and you're aware of your strengths. Is there something that they can do to just like, okay, this time I'm going to I start off with like a deep breath, and like the first thing I'm going to think about is that good mindset or that good thing, that thing I do well, and focus on that.
Honestly, the first thing that I would do is identify what's your goal for that session. So is this a practice session for you? Like, is this an hour that you're going to spend? You just want to get better at something. So maybe it's something very specific, and you're not even going to go for wins or kills. It's just like moving around the map, becoming more aware, or like learning how to, switch weapons most effectively, or just understanding like the play style of a new character. So like that could be your goal for that training session. And you don't care how many kills you get, how many times you die, how many wins you get, like that could be something. Another thing could be, I just want to have fun. Like, I don't care if I win or I lose or I get better or whatever. Like, I just need an hour to unwind after work, play with my friends, have some fun, have some jokes, whatever. Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
And then maybe a different goal that you might have is like, I want to win as much as possible. I want to do the best that I can. And you can see just by having those 3 different goals, you would have 3 different mindsets going into those gaming sessions, right?
For sure. So like, how do you avoid coming back to your bad habits? Because I tend to, this was very apparent with Titan, especially in D1. It's like, I know better. I know I shouldn't be rushing in, and I know I should be working with my teammates more. And there'd be some moments where I'd bring myself back and be like, okay, let's reset. What am I going to do? I gotta focus on this. We're working on trying to stick to my teammates. And as soon as like that, the action starts happening, something turns off and it's like, okay, time to rush in.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, I mean, the first thing would obviously be identifying what is that thing that you either, want to avoid doing, or the thing that you do want to do, right? So let's just assume that you already know what that is. So the question is, okay, well, how do I make sure that happens, especially over the course of, a 12-minute game, 15-minute game, or an hour of playing? So what I would say is come up with a cue or a reminder or like a reset that you can regularly use to bring yourself back into the moment. To be present focused, because if you sort of just start going through the motions and you've just been playing for a while, you might get off of that strategy or that process that was making you successful, right? So it could be something simple as after every 10-minute game, like taking that deep breath, like standing up in your chair. I don't know, like taking a sip of water, just literally anything that signals me to be present, focused in the moment right now, and I will get back to, whatever it is that was making me successful to begin with, so that I don't just go through the motions.
So if you're working with someone, especially on like improvements like this, are you trying to encourage them to do shorter sessions first before they because I tend to see like in long sessions of trying something new or doing something, I tend to like wear out and go back to those old habits a little bit easier, because my brain is just like, yeah, let's just go back, do what worked.
Yeah, that's a great question, and it goes into a little bit of the motor learning type of like research and literature. So understanding when it comes to practice, there's lots of different types of practice. I won't. It's been a while since I've even looked through all of that stuff, but one of the things that I do remember out of that information is blocking off practice and then giving an extended period of time of rest or doing something different and then returning to it is really beneficial for the brain in terms of learning and memory, because every time that you work that motor program to retrieve it, it becomes a little bit more solidified. So like if you're just doing something repetitively over and over and over again, it doesn't give the brain the time to step away, sort of like make that neural pathway very strong. And what actually makes that stronger is by, like I said, just kind of taking a break and then coming back to it. And over the course of, hours on, hour off, or like day on, day off, you actually start to improve the ability that's going to stay with you over time, especially when you need it most. So like in that stressful or that pressure situation where you have to clutch, the 1v3, that's where it's going to be put into action best. And that's really what you were looking for. So yeah, I would say that idea of blocked practice where you're using the retrieval is probably what you're looking for there.
Oh man, that's what I struggle with. One of the most things is like, I stay on too long. Like, oh, I just need 2 more games. I want to get this thing, or like, just keep going. Like, I lost SR and I need to get my SR back, or like something situational like that. And it ends up being to a detriment for me, at least to especially in Overwatch. I lost a ton of SR this past weekend.
Yeah, and you can see some of these interviews that these, now that esports is becoming much more mainstream with the competitiveness, you can see these interviews with how the athletes are training, and they're trying to stay away from just playing for 9 straight hours on a day if it's a training session, because they're not getting as much out of it. It's much more beneficial for them to scrim for a blocked period of time, take time off to do something else, whether it's some physical training, going out, socializing, eating, whatever it is, coming back and then doing it again, and also getting a lot of sleep, because the brain needs to sleep in order to, again, sort of solidify that mental blueprint that you put in your head so that it can be retrieved going forward.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, there's definitely a lot of stories lately I'm seeing of esports teams turning towards these things and saying, okay, time to use the science rather than, bang our heads against the wall for 8 hours.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's what's going to make these competitors really step up to the next level of entertainers. When they start to incorporate the comprehensive performance. So not just, is my thumb skill really good, or is my mouse and keyboard, really good? And is my strategy good for, doing the lane versus doing top, or, jungler, or whatever the game is, right? But it's understanding the impact that sleep has on performance, understanding the role that physical activity and working out has on your ability to have like endurance over long periods of time. Understanding like the importance that sleep has, and then like mental skills training, training the complete athlete is what's going to take these guys to the next level.
I definitely wanted to like touch on this from this this esports article I sent you.
Yeah.
But it says in October of 2016, Dallas Mavericks owner Mark Cuban told Fusion he won't invest in an esports team because of burnout. So I'm worried about how quickly players burn out. Cuban said it's a grind to keep up and to become great, particularly at League. I know teams are trying to do more, but the number of hours involved is a real concern for me. So it also goes on to say burnout doesn't happen all at once, according to psychologists.
Right.
So
yep.
It creeps up on you. It's emotional and physical exhaustion. It's detaching yourself from your work. When it happens, it crashes down on you like rain.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And I thought that was like one of the best quotes from that article. It was just like, I've been there. I've been there where it's like, I've been doing this too much. And we talked about it a little bit towards the end of D1, like take a break.
Yes.
Like you need to take a break. Like this is something that you cannot ignore because you keep banging your head against something, or you see with some of, some streamers, like some of these streamers have to, like, it's their job now. They got to spend those 8 hours like playing this video game or going at it and everything. And I'm worried for some of them. It's like this burnout's going to affect them and negatively affect like how they enjoy their job at that point.
I've always thought that that's like a big concern for streamers. And I would love to talk to these guys that are doing it now full time and they're streaming, 40 hours a week, doing 12-hour sessions. I would love to talk to them and get an idea for, why is it that you're playing the game? What's the motivation? Because that's going to have a huge impact on whether or not down the line that burnout starts to creep in. Because if you're doing it for like the money, or you're doing it because, it's the pride that you get from other people, like that's very different than saying like, I do it because I just enjoy it. Like even if I was getting no subs, if I was getting no viewers, like I would still be playing the game. That's two very different sides on the motivation sort of continuum. And that's what's going to either lead to somebody being more burnt out or keep them away from, that particularly dangerous feeling, end state.
Sure. Since we're on it, like what sort of, recommendations would you have for someone that does stream and has like an 8-hour session, like where they're planning to stream for 8 hours that day and they're really into one game, like right now. And, towards the end of their sessions, they tend to like, they get cranky, they get upset, like they're, it's not working as well. Is there anything you would suggest they do in the middle, like, or to like break it up, or because they still got to entertain and they still got to be, part of their job to stick around, because people leave streams if it gets boring. People leave streams if it gets, angry or like just off-putting.
Yeah, I think, having not spent a lot of time talking, to a lot of the big streamers and not being one myself, I'm sort of hypothesizing right now. But
sure,
one of the things that I would say those streamers should be doing is trying to be true to themselves. Anytime that they're trying to create this sort of new version of themselves to cater towards the audience, it's probably not going to last very long and be enjoyable for them. They're not going to be able to keep that up. So it seems like to me, from looking outside in, the streamers that are very successful are the ones that are like, look, if I'm losing subs, it's not that big of a deal because I am who I am, and those people that'll support me will support me regardless, but I can't try to be somebody else because I feel totally drained by the end of just playing for an hour of a game that I don't enjoy, and trying to like maybe do carries when I don't really enjoy that game type. So if they can try to be as true to themselves as possible, I think that's one way that they can limit that feeling of pure exhaustion.
I think that could be done by like either playing a game you do like or finding something that you can do in the middle of like a really long play session. Like, hey, I'm going to play, Minesweeper for an hour and just talk to people and chat. And like, that could be a way to like break it up and like, really, because especially with, someone like myself where I work on my feet all day and I'm in the kitchen and I'm cooking, and there's a moment in the middle of the day where I have to be like, okay, I need to sit down. Like, this is something I need to break up. Like, I can't operate like this the full day. So
yeah,
take a break.
Yeah. The breaks are big. I know the people that seem to be the people that seem to be really successful with the streaming too enjoy the interaction with their chat or their followers or their subs. And I think that gives them that sort of refreshment or that break that you're talking about too, is just like, all right, I'm just going to take, a couple of minutes before I queue up the next match, and, I'll do an an AMA, or, you guys give me some sort of challenge and I'll do that on stream here. And I think if that's true to yourself, that's authentic to who you are and it's genuine, then leveraging the interaction that you have, because since it's so unique, you don't really get that in traditional sports where, LeBron is, dribbling down the court and he gets to interact with the fans that are watching him on TV. Like, it's totally different, right? But like, it's such a cool opportunity that streamers have where if they need a break from actually just playing the game, interacting with the chat, I think would be a really refreshing way to do that and take that break.
Well, I want to circle back to the main discussion here a little bit and say, so what if you're armed with your strengths, your weaknesses, you're armed with your things to focus on, whether it's your, depending on the play session, it's fun, it's highly competitive, it's working on this particular skill. Say you accomplish some of that and you reach another level and you reach those things. What would you suggest someone who's playing at a high level do to keep it around?
Well, goal setting is the number one way, according to the sports psychology research literature. It's been around for over 50 years now. That's the way to continue to improve performance. So setting goals for yourself, and then like you're talking about achieving those goals. Well, what's the next step? It's pretty straightforward. It's setting another goal and then working the process of how am I going to achieve that goal. That's the way to continue to be motivated towards improvement. It's the way to stay focused when you're doing different practice or training sessions. It's the way to feel energized because you're seeing progress from where you started to where you're going to continue to go. So, like what you're talking about, if you're starting to feel that plateau, maybe you need to redefine what it is that you're working towards.
So do you prefer someone set small or bigger goals? Or both?
I would say both, right? So I would want you to set like a sort of an end state, an outcome goal, something that's is still realistic for you, but it's going to take some time to get to. But then break that goal down further into sort of big picture priority performance areas. And then each one of those you can break down further into what are the processes that you can do, the behaviors, the actions, the things that you can say to yourself to work towards those, big priority performance goals. And then all of those will get you towards that end state kind of outcome goal that you're talking about. So yeah, it's very much a combination of setting big goals and setting small goals. And I think a lot of people, when they make mistakes when it comes to the goal setting process, is they only make that end state goal and they forget about it, a week later because it's not in the forefront of their mind. Those smaller goals are the things that you're doing on a daily basis that's working you towards that larger end state goal that's further out in time.
Yeah, I definitely have been trying to focus, even outside of just video games, in life in general. I made a list of 18 for 2018, and that's like my list of goals I want to set for this year. And I definitely have some big ones that like are pretty lofty, but there's definitely some really easy accomplishable ones, like, make sure I mail this thing out. Like, that's easy. Like, I could do that. Like, no big deal. But it helps me reach those loftier goals, like build upon that, the momentum. I get one little thing done and it makes me feel good that I've done that little thing and keep moving and build up to the big thing.
Yeah. If you're one of those people that struggle when it comes to goal setting because you're really good at setting the goal, but you're not good with working towards and enacting and actually accomplishing the goal, one of the things that you can do is just writing it down on paper. There's this impact that it has of seeing the words in front of you and then keeping that in the forefront. So it's not like sort of just somewhere in your front of your mind, back of your mind, like it's there in front of you. And if you hang it somewhere that you see like every day, or like you put it on the lock screen of your phone, or you take a picture of it and you put it on the dashboard of your car, like anything that you can do to trip over that list or those things every single day will help you help remind yourself and keep you working towards those particular goals. And hopefully you do set some of those smaller, more manageable, achievable goals so that you can start to build that momentum. Because I imagine like when you set that list and some of those goals were things that you may have already achieved over the course of the first 2 months of the year, you're starting to feel pretty good about it. Like, look, if I'm already starting to knock these things off the list, like even just that feeling of checking it off or crossing it off, like that's a good feeling to have. And that's what's going to continue to motivate you to work towards some of those other loftier, more challenging goals that you set for yourself.
Yeah, definitely I have used like Post-it notes on my monitors before. That's been really helpful. Yeah. Like something I can look down at and be like, okay, this is the goal. Like we're working towards this. May not have always worked, but I had it there. And I, like you said, tripped over it every single time I sat down.
Yeah. As long as you don't have like 36 Post-it notes all over your like office, like
rimming the monitor,
then it really kind of takes away. Like if it's one specific Post-it note, that stands out among the other ones that are on your page, or your background or your laptop, your desk, whatever it is, like make sure that it's something that stands out to you, that doesn't become just the new normal. Like if I had one Post-it note that was on my monitor at work over the course of like 3 months, I wouldn't even pay attention. Like I wouldn't even notice it's there anymore. It's sort of just like, old furniture that's just been sitting there so switch it up, change it up a little bit. All good strategies to keep those goals in your forefront of your mind.
All right, Steve, it's been really fun talking with you today. But I want to leave you with one more question here. And I want to know if you can leave our listeners with something that they can, some words of encouragement they can use on their path to improvement.
Yeah, that's a good question also, Swain. And before I even answer that, I just want to say thank you again for having me on.
Of course.
And I appreciate all the Crucible Radio listeners. There's a huge fan base that's out there, and they've given me a lot of support. They've interacted with me either at Guardian Con or on Twitter, through the Discord. Like, you got a great group of people that are listening in here. So anything that I can do to help them out, even if it's something that helps them, play Destiny or Fortnite or I don't know, at work, at home with their kids, their parents. Like, I would love to be able to help that out. So the parting words that I have for you and for the listeners is just, one of the things that I think I hit home pretty thoroughly in the theme of this discussion has been self-awareness and strengths. So start at square one, take some time to really reflect on what is it that you already do well, and what can you do to leverage those in the situations where you feel like you're not performing at your best? Because I imagine in those situations, it's because you're getting away from what makes you who you are at your best. And again, that applies to gaming, sure, but it also applies to you being a parent, you being a chef at work, you being a salesperson, making those calls. Like, find that thing or those things that make you who you are at your best, and leverage those as much as possible. It'll overcome a lot of those challenges, struggles, feelings of complacency or inadequacy that you're having in the different performances and tasks that you have throughout your life.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Steve.
Swain, it's been a pleasure, man. Thank you.
As always. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining me today for this wonderful episode where I explored the inner workings of your mind just a little. Hopefully, you came away from this episode with a little something to focus on as you jump back into whatever game you're playing currently. But before I go, I just want to ask, if you like the show, please leave us a review on iTunes and check out our Patreon. We do all sorts of cool things over there. We do an extra podcast where we talk about everything but Destiny. You can share your support for as little as $1 each month. So thank you for listening, and Birds will be back next week with our next installment of solo episodes. Love y'all. Bye. This week's music is brought to you by Storm Ross. You can find more at stormross.bandcamp.com. If you want to be a part of Crucible Radio and have your music right here in the episode, send us an email, crucibleradio@gmail.com. Hello everyone, Swain here. You know that Crucible Radio is your source for all things Destiny PvP, and I know you want more than just this video, so make sure to head on over to crucibleradio.com to find all of our past episodes, detailed Crucible maps, t-shirts, and much, much more.